There's nothing more terrifying than realizing the scariest moments of your life might not just be random flukes. They could be part of something much bigger, darker, and hidden in plain sight. My name's Ethan Cole, and what I'm about to share isn't just one real horror story. It's 2 nights that ripped open my idea of what's normal and made me question everything I thought I knew about being safe. In one, I woke up wearing someone else's clothes with hours of my memory completely gone, convinced I'd stumbled into the middle of a secret cult or something worse. In the other, Olivia Barnes found herself driving lonely back roads, only to discover the car tailing her might have been carrying 2 men wanted for attempted murder. These aren't just creepy experiences. They're true crime vibes come to life, proof that sometimes the monsters out there don't hide under beds, they drive the car behind you, or slip a drink into your hand when you're not looking. And if you think it couldn't happen to you, trust me, so did we. So stick around, because these 2 stories might change the way you look at the night forever. I woke up in the middle of some random bushes over 50 miles away from where I'd been partying, wearing clothes that weren't mine with my shoelaces ripped out and not a single memory of the last 10 hours. And don't tell me I was just drunk, because this was different. This felt like my entire identity had been stolen overnight, like I'd been dropped into someone else's life. And that's the part that scares me the most. This isn't just some random blackout story, this is real horror shit that makes me wonder if there's some secret cult out there drugging people and erasing their memories, or worse. My name's Ethan Cole, and what happened to me and my best friend Tyler Brooks last 4th of July on the Jersey Shore is the craziest, creepiest true story I've ever told. And the more I replay it, the more I'm convinced it wasn't just some wild party gone sideways. Derek Hale, who I've known for over 20 years, had invited us to this massive EDM event, the kind of place packed with big-name DJs and flashing lights and pounding bass so deep you could feel it vibrating through your chest. We were buzzed, yeah, it was 4th of July weekend, but nothing that should have left us waking up like we'd been abducted. There's no part of me that believes this was just getting too drunk. The texts I apparently sent that night don't even add up, and Tyler went through the exact same thing, down to waking up miles away wearing clothes that belonged to someone else. This is the kind of scary experience you'd expect to see in true crime documentaries or viral mystery videos. But it happened to me for real, and I can't shake the feeling that whatever was behind it is still out there watching. Derek Hale is one of those guys who somehow knows everybody in the East Coast EDM scene, like the kind of dude who'll casually name-drop artists you only ever see headlining giant festivals or going viral on social media. And the craziest part is he's only been building this whole business for 2 years, but he's already throwing events at some of the biggest clubs in New York and Jersey. He's been my best friend for over 20 years, which is how I've ended up backstage or in VIP more times than I can count, even though I'm not really that deep into the whole rave culture. That night was supposed to be his biggest event yet, a 4th of July blowout on the Jersey Shore, the type of party you'd see on those viral TikToks where bass is shaking the floors, people are screaming over lasers and CO2 blasts, and influencers are running around live streaming every second like it's the most important night of their lives. Tyler Brooks, my other close friend, was riding with us down the parkway, and honestly it was impossible not to feel hyped when we pulled up outside the venue. It was one of those massive places right near the beach. Neon lights bouncing off every window lines, wrapping around the block, bouncers talking into radios, and the muffled thump of house beats already punching through the walls, even though the doors weren't technically open yet. Derek had to handle load-in and production stuff. So Tyler and I basically had nothing to do for hours, except start drinking. And when you're surrounded by free booze at a place like that, you tell yourself it's just a couple shots to kill time. But before you know it, you're pounding vodka sodas and grinning like an idiot while the DJ spins sound checks that still hit harder than half the parties back home. And sure, I've been drunk plenty of times, but that night felt different. Like the entire atmosphere was primed to make me forget where the line was between feeling buzzed and getting completely out of control. The place was crawling with people who looked like they belonged on magazine covers, designer outfits, perfect hair girls in glitter and mesh, who you'd assume were influencers or models. And there was this weird energy in the air, something I can't explain, like the perfect storm of excitement and danger. And that's the part that's been eating at me ever since. Because this wasn't just a party gone wrong, this was the start of a real horror story, the kind of true crime vibes you read about in Reddit threads titled, "I got drugged at a club and still don't know what happened." And the more I replay it, the more it feels like someone was watching me that whole night, setting me up for something way bigger than just losing my wallet or waking up hungover. Derek kept giving me these half grins like he knew it was going to be legendary, and Tyler was practically bouncing off the walls trying to talk to every group of girls he could find like he was on some mission. But all I could think about, even through the haze, was how I felt like a spotlight was on me the entire time, like eyes were tracking my every move, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it, that feeling just wouldn't leave. And looking back, that's probably why the moment Sienna Cruz and Bianca Moreno approached us at the bar felt less like random luck, and more like the next move in someone's carefully planned game. Sienna Cruz and Bianca Moreno were the kind of girls who turned heads the second they walked into the room. Tall, flawless makeup clothes that screamed money, and this quiet confidence like they owned every inch of that club. And the craziest part is they didn't look out of place at all among the models and influencers crowding the Jersey Shore nightlife scene that night. I remember thinking it was kind of wild that girls like them were even talking to us. Even though Tyler and I aren't exactly trolls, we're both over 6 feet tall, decent-looking guys, but the way Sienna and Bianca zoned in on us felt deliberate, like they'd picked us out before they even walked over. 1 second, I'm nursing a vodka soda trying to keep myself from getting too sloppy. And the next, Bianca is leaning close enough for me to smell her perfume, something expensive and sharp, and telling us we should all keep the party going somewhere more private. It sounds like every dude's fantasy, but in hindsight, the whole thing felt scripted, almost like they were following steps in a playbook. Before we could even agree, Sienna shoved these drinks into our hands and said we needed to get on their level first. And even though part of my brain screamed that accepting a random drink was a terrible idea, the rest of me was buzzing with the vibe of the night, the music, the lights, and the fact that 2 girls like them were all over us. It's the classic setup for a creepy storytime video on YouTube. Guys meet gorgeous girls at a club, get drugged, wake up in the middle of nowhere. And I swear to God, that's exactly what this turned into. Because the second I finished that drink, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just normal drunk spinning. It was like my muscles turned to wet sand, my tongue felt thick, and I had this weird sense that my arms and legs didn't belong to me. The music pounding from the speakers started to sound muffled, like it was coming from underwater, and even though Tyler was still talking and laughing next to me, I couldn't focus on a single word he was saying. Everything around me seemed to stretch and warp, neon lights smearing across my vision. And for a split second, I swear I saw Sienna whisper something to Bianca, with this look on her face, like she'd just closed a deal. It sounds insane, but in that moment, I felt like I was being watched by someone else, like this was all part of some secret cult's plan, and the thought that maybe I'd been marked for something darker than just a robbery slammed into my chest so hard, I thought I might puke right there on the floor. But then, just as fast, the feeling faded back into normal drunkenness, and I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, that it was just the alcohol hitting me harder than usual. So when Bianca suggested we leave and head to her beach house, I didn't fight it, even though every hair on my arms was standing on end. We stumbled out of the club, the 4 of us laughing and leaning on each other like everything was normal, but inside I felt this creeping dread clawing at my gut. And if I'd known what was waiting for me at that house, I'd have run the other way without looking back. The second we stepped out of the club and felt the cool ocean air blasting us in the face, I thought maybe I'd shake it off, that the weird numbness in my limbs and that heavy sinking feeling in my chest would go away, but it didn't. Instead, every step toward Bianca's beach house felt like my feet were moving through wet cement, and even though the sand under my sneakers was solid, I kept feeling like I was going to fall straight through it. Tyler was stumbling along beside me, laughing about something Bianca said, but I could barely understand his words, and every time I tried to focus my eyes, the lights from the boardwalk smeared into neon rivers that seemed to crawl across my vision. The waves crashing against the shore sounded distant and echoey, like I was hearing them from inside a tunnel. Sienna was walking just a few feet ahead, glancing back at me with this tight little smile that in any other context would have looked flirty, but right then felt like she was checking to see how much longer I'd stay conscious. Bianca kept saying how much nicer her place was compared to some random Airbnb inland, and how we were going to have the real Jersey Shore experience. And part of me wanted to laugh because it sounded so over the top, but the other part of me was screaming that none of this was right. When we finally reached the house, I swear it looked like something out of a music video. 3 floors, glass balconies, modern white walls glowing under spotlights, and it sat maybe 200 feet from the edge of the beach. The minute I stepped inside, I felt like I'd been dropped into a different world. Sculptures on pedestals, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my entire salary, and this weird ambient music pulsing softly from hidden speakers. Everything smelled like expensive candles and bleach, which should have been comforting, but somehow made the hair on my neck stand up. Tyler and Bianca disappeared almost immediately, And it was just me and Sienna in the living room, the two of us standing there in this weird silence broken only by that low electronic hum vibrating through the walls. She moved closer, and I tried to say something, but my mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and the words came out slurred. That's when she leaned in close enough that her hair brushed against my cheek and whispered, "Just relax, it'll all be over soon." And in that instant, I felt the coldest chill slide through my entire body like an electric shock. My vision started tunneling, darkness creeping in from the edges, and I felt my knees buckle under me. I swear to God, I saw a man step out from a hallway in the back wearing black clothes and gloves, holding something metallic that glinted under the recessed lights. But I couldn't even process it, because my whole body went weightless, like my consciousness was slipping out of my skull. And then, I was gone. No fade out. Just black. Like someone hit a switch. And even though I have zero memory of what happened next, the part that still keeps me awake at night is knowing that whatever went down in that house wasn't just random partying gone wrong, and the fact that both Tyler and I went through the exact same blackout makes me sure as hell that none of it was a coincidence. Which is why waking up the next day felt like stepping into a true crime nightmare. When I came to, the first thing I saw was sunlight stabbing straight into my eyes like knives. And the second thing I realized was that I wasn't lying on a bed or a couch or even a floor. I was sprawled out in a patch of dry bushes, dirt caked into my hair, my shirt damp like I'd been sweating through it for hours. For a few seconds I couldn't even figure out which direction was up. Everything smelled like dust and old leaves, and there were these tiny burrs sticking into my arms and neck. My mouth felt like sandpaper. My head was pounding so hard it felt like it might split open, and as I tried to sit up, I caught sight of my clothes and froze. Because it wasn't my shirt, or my jeans, or my jacket. Everything I was wearing belonged to someone else, like stuff you'd find in a lost and found bin. And the thought that someone had undressed me and put me into a stranger's clothes made me feel like my stomach was turning inside out. Even my shoes, which were still technically mine, were soaking wet and missing their laces as if someone had deliberately ripped them out. For one insane second, I actually thought maybe someone had taken my kidneys. That's how wild my mind was racing, but there weren't any scars or fresh stitches on my side. Still, the fear that I'd somehow been drugged and dumped for some black market organ harvesting or human trafficking ring wouldn't leave me. Because this didn't feel like a normal blackout. I've been drunk before plenty of times, but never have I woken up wearing clothes that weren't mine in a place I didn't recognize, with entire hours of my life just gone like someone had hit the delete key on my brain. And that's the part that makes this the kind of real horror story that people talk about in True Crime Vibes videos or Reddit's creepiest mystery threads. I struggled to my feet, and everything around me was silent except for the buzzing of cicadas and the low rumble of distant traffic. It definitely wasn't the Jersey Shore. There weren't any neon lights, no ocean air, no boardwalk. It was just trees, cracked asphalt, and a road that curved off into nowhere. When I finally spotted a 7-Eleven sign glinting maybe a couple 100 feet away, it was like a lifeline. I stumbled across the street, feeling like my bones were vibrating under my skin, and practically collapsed into the store where the guy behind the counter stared at me like I was some kind of meth head. When I told him my phone and wallet were gone, he hesitated like he was trying to decide if I was about to rob the place, but eventually he slid his cell phone across the counter. I dialed the only number I could remember by heart, my sister's, and my voice cracked so bad she could barely understand me. While I was talking, I couldn't stop glancing over my shoulder, half expecting those same gloved people from the beach house to come bursting in after me. And even though my sister was already trying to help me track my phone, all I could think about was whether Tyler was somewhere going through this exact same nightmare. And that's when the door to the 7-Eleven swung open and he walked in looking just as wrecked as I felt. When Tyler Brooks walked into that 7-Eleven for a second, I couldn't even speak. We just stared at each other like two guys who'd seen a ghost, and then we did the most normal thing in the world for two Jersey dudes who'd just been through something that felt like a horror movie. We dabbed each other up. But I could tell from the way his eyes were darting around the store that he was every bit as freaked out as I was. His hair was a mess, his clothes weren't his, and he kept wiping his hands on his jeans like he couldn't get something off his skin. When he finally told me his side, it was like hearing my own story played back to me, the drinks from Sienna and Bianca, the way his body felt like it was shutting down, blacking out without any warning, and then waking up miles away wearing clothes that belonged to someone else. And that's the part that makes me sure this isn't just some random drunk blackout story you'd hear on a bar crawl Reddit thread. It's the kind of real horror story you see covered in true crime vibes, videos where people vanish for hours, and nobody knows what was done to them in the meantime. The worst part was realizing that whoever did this went to the trouble of keeping up appearances. Our phones were still charged when we got them back sitting together in a parking lot, like somebody had just placed them there on purpose. The texts in my phone were chilling because they sounded exactly like me, written in my normal tone, but none of them matched up timeline-wise. There were messages thanking Derek for the party, another telling my dad that we'd crashed at a buddy's place, and a casual text to a girl I'd been talking to about how I was chilling at home. Except all those things couldn't possibly be true at the same time. It felt like someone was staging an alibi on my behalf, like they were covering their tracks in case anybody tried to figure out what really happened to me during those missing hours. And Tyler had the same thing, normal-sounding texts he swore he never typed. It's the most disturbing detail because it proves we were still conscious enough to operate our phones even though neither of us can remember doing it. That's what keeps me up at night, the possibility that we were awake, maybe even talking to people while whatever was happening to us was happening, and our minds have just been scrubbed clean. We tried telling the cops everything standing outside that 7-Eleven with our hair sticking up and dirt still clinging to our clothes, but the more we talked, the more their faces started to close off. They kept suggesting maybe we'd just been wasted and wandered off, even though there's no way two guys would independently end up dumped over 50 miles away wearing strangers' clothes. I kept thinking they'd check out Bianca's beach house, that they'd try to find Sienna, but instead they gave us business cards and told us to call if we remembered anything else. The part that hit hardest was when one of the officers muttered, "Happens more than you think." Like this kind of thing is just another Friday night in Jersey, and that's why Tyler and I decided we couldn't leave it alone. Because even though the cops brushed us off, we needed to know if that beach house was real, or if we'd been dragged into some secret cult, some trafficking ring, or something even darker. And that's what sent us driving all the way back down the shore to try and find that house again. The closer we got back to the Jersey shore, the more the entire night felt unreal, like a bad dream that kept glitching in and out of my head. And the scariest part was how Tyler and I were both remembering the exact same details. It wasn't just random blackout fragments, it was little flashes like Sienna's perfume, the feeling of expensive marble floors under my bare feet, and the faint hum of electronic music coming from speakers we never saw. We drove up and down the stretch of road by the beach, scanning for that glass and white house, and finally, after nearly an hour, we found it. It looked exactly like I remembered: modern architecture, sculpted hedges, a walkway of square concrete tiles leading to a tall front door. We stood there for a second, just staring at it, because even though it was daylight and there were joggers and families with strollers on the boardwalk, that house felt radioactive, like it was pulsing with some invisible warning not to get closer. But we needed answers, so we rang the doorbell, half expecting Sienna or Bianca to open it with that same cool smile, maybe even pretending like nothing had happened. Instead, an older man opened the door wearing a Rutgers sweatshirt and a confused expression like we'd just knocked him awake from a nap. I tried to keep my voice calm and asked if a girl named Bianca Moreno lived there, or maybe Sienna Cruz, or if he had a daughter or granddaughter about our age. He gave us a flat no, didn't recognize either name, and asked why we were looking for them. I tried spinning some bullshit story about a friend who claimed to have stayed there and must have lied, and weirdly the guy seemed to think it was kind of funny. He gave a short laugh, said people were always renting houses around here for parties, and wished us luck finding our mystery girls. And that was it. He shut the door, and we were left standing there with the ocean wind whipping sand across the walkway, and I felt this sick drop in my stomach because suddenly it was like the entire house was a ghost. Like it existed for one night only purely to swallow us up. And that's the kind of unsolved mystery that's been gnawing at me ever since. Because how the hell did Tyler and I both end up in places we didn't recognize, wearing clothes that weren't ours, with hours missing from our lives, and nobody, not even the cops, seemed to think it was worth looking into? And why did everything inside that house feel so perfectly staged, from the sculptures, to the lighting, to the ambient music, like it was designed to keep us calm, even as something horrific was going on behind the scenes? Sometimes I wonder if that man at the door was telling the truth, or if he was part of it, like some handler in a secret operation to keep everything quiet. Because as crazy as it sounds, there's a part of me that still believes Sienna and Bianca were working for something bigger, maybe a trafficking ring or some cult experimenting with drugs that wipe memories, or even filming secret videos for the dark web. And the thing that chills me the most is that whoever pulled this off didn't just want to rob us, they wanted to erase us, or at least erase a piece of us. And that's why, even though time keeps moving forward, I can't help feeling like one day this isn't just going to be a memory, but the start of something even darker waiting to happen next. It's been almost a year since that night, and not a single day has gone by where I don't replay pieces of it in my head, trying to stitch together the missing hours like some warped puzzle with half the pieces ripped away. People always tell me maybe I should just let it go, that it was probably just some crazy night gone off the rails, but there's no way I'm ever buying that. This wasn't just a drunk blackout. This was a real horror story, the kind of true crime vibes people binge watch for hours on YouTube. Except this one actually happened to me, and the worst part is that whoever did this is still out there. I keep thinking about that beach house and wondering if it's really just some regular rental, or if it's like a stage set that gets swapped out for different marks depending on who they're targeting next. I keep remembering Sienna whispering in my ear, "It'll all be over soon," and wondering if that was a threat or a promise. And sometimes when I'm out at bars or clubs, I'll catch a whiff of some expensive perfume or see a flash of long dark hair, and for a second my heart stops because I think it's them. The idea that we were maybe part of something bigger, a secret cult, a trafficking ring, an experiment testing out some drug that erases memory, eats away at me because it means there's a whole piece of the world moving underneath the surface that we never see. And it terrifies me to think that maybe one day someone else will wake up in bushes, wearing clothes that don't belong to them, with hours missing from their life, and the same empty look in their eyes that Tyler and I had. So if anybody out there has ever gone through something like this, if you've ever woken up missing chunks of your memory with that sick feeling in your stomach that you were used for something you'll never understand, I hope you'll talk about it, because the scariest part of all this is knowing we're not the only ones. And if anything ever changes, or if we ever find out who those girls really were, or what they wanted, you can bet I'll be back here sharing every detail, because this story isn't over, not by a long shot. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes the scariest thing isn't what people might do to you. It's that feeling of not knowing who you were for a chunk of your own life. Losing those hours made me question my reality, my memories, and even my own instincts. But I've learned that talking about it helps. And if you've ever felt that same cold fear clawing at your chest because you've lost time, you can't explain, you're definitely not alone. Sharing these real horror stories isn't just for the shock value. It's so we don't feel crazy for wondering what's lurking under the surface of normal life. So if this story hit close to home, drop me a comment below and tell me your craziest unexplained experiences, or just let me know you're out there listening, because trust me, it helps more than you know. And if you're into true crime vibes and creepy real-life mysteries, make sure you hit that like button, save this video, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the story I'm about to share next happened to Olivia Barnes, who thought her drive home one night was going to be nothing but empty roads, and instead found herself being stalked by a car that may have been connected to a pair of armed robbers wanted for attempted murder. And believe me, you're not going to want to miss how that one ends.